She stole my identity online. Everyone believed her lies, until I followed the digital trail and uncovered everything she did behind my back. If someone had told me a year ago that your whole sense of self could unravel through a Wi-Fi connection, I'd have thought it sounded like bad sci-fi. But I suppose most collapses begin with the simplest bugs, the ones you see and dismiss until it's too late. My name is Eric Mitchell. I'm 34. I work as an account manager for a logistics company in Chicago. Not a glamorous life, but I always thought it was enough to keep my feet on the ground. Order at work, routine at home. I live in a two-bedroom rental on the north side with my fiancée, Hannah. People always talk about settling down like it's a resignation. For me, it felt like proof I'd finally arrived at some gentle middle ground. Hannah and I met 3 years ago. She was working in digital marketing, sharp, funny, quick to find the angle no one else did. She brought life into every room. The social one, the fixer, equal parts energy and charm. We moved in together after a year. Nothing about it was rushed. If anything, we felt reliable in ways our friends envied. But things started to shift early last fall. Little things, at first, odd moods, nights out with friends from the old job that I'd never met, and the way her phone screen started to always face downward. Our routines drifted. Where she was once chatty about her clients and projects, now work was just fine. She started locking herself in the spare room for hours, claiming she was researching new clients. I found myself shrugging it off, defaulting to the usual. People get busy. Everyone deserves their privacy. It's strange how you only notice red flags in the rearview. In October, I started getting weird texts from people I hadn't spoken to in ages. Hey, got your message, happy to help. Did you sort it out with the bank? Or if hope things at work aren't as bad as you made them sound. At first I thought they were wrong numbers, or just some weird corporate phishing. Then my college roommate Tony called. Everything all right, man? That was some heavy stuff you sent. I had no idea what he was talking about. Tony went quiet for a second. The email. About losing your job. The whatever, never mind. Forget it if it's private. I checked my accounts. Nothing. No strange sent mail, no drafts. I chalked it up to a misfire. But then there was the credit card. I opened a letter from Capital One congratulating me on my new approval and offering a generous line of credit. I never applied for it. Then another, this time from American Express, in my name, but to my new email address. I showed Hannah the letters that evening. She frowned, spun a theory about mix-ups and spam, and tossed them in the trash. That's when I noticed. Her hands were trembling as she sorted the bills. By November, it went further. Collections companies started calling. An old family friend messaged my mom to ask if she could help Eric through his tough time. Our joint account was missing small amounts, irregular blips, 20 here, 40 there. Always transferred to some payment app I'd never installed. Hannah became defensive when I brought up the calls. You're being paranoid, Eric. Everyone has identity theft scares now and then. She began talking about how controlling I'd gotten, how I never trusted her. Our fights sharpened, then faded into resentful silences. But in the quiet, I felt a growing itch, something fundamentally wrong. One night, after she'd gone to bed, I pulled out the ancient family laptop, the one we rarely used except to print tickets or do taxes. There, in the browser history, was a breadcrumb trail I couldn't unsee. Password resets for my email and bank, social media logins from our own Wi-Fi, but at odd hours, 2:17 a.m., 3:41 a.m. Requests to verify identity for credit cards I never opened. One search read, how to forward Gmail without notification. My heart pounded with every new click. I called Tony, voice shaking, and told him everything. He listened, then, in typical Tony fashion, cut to the core. Dude, you have to check your credit report and lock everything down. Like yesterday, there's a fact they don't tell you about betrayal. The dread feels less like anger and more like falling through an invisible floor. I started a notebook, dates, names, call times, screenshots. Lawyer brain or not, I knew the power of documentation. The next morning, Hannah watched me over her coffee, eyebrows pinched, the air heavy with things left unsaid. I told her I was going to the bank to check some account errors. She nodded, smiled too quickly, and disappeared into the spare room. I closed the apartment door behind me, resolve hardening. For the first time in years, I felt less like I was leaving home and more like I was escaping it. Bank lobbies have always unsettled me. There's something absurd about strangers having more insight into your life than you sometimes do. That morning, under the stale fluorescent lights at the PNC branch on Clark, I was acutely aware of how little control I really had. I requested a meeting with the branch manager, a tired-looking woman with a practiced, sympathetic smile. I need to check if there have been any unauthorized accounts or requests under my name, I said, half expecting her to wave me off. Instead, she nodded, printed off a stack of statements, and helped me flag the unfamiliar ones. There they were, 2 new credit cards, a PayPal account I'd never authorized, and 3 small transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. We called their fraud department together. I placed a freeze on my credit and filed an official identity theft affidavit, hands clammy as I signed each page. There's a surreal calm that comes when the worst parts of a suspicion start to prove true. It's not relief, not even anger, but the thrum of running on empty, the last scoops of energy fueling only the basics. Check boxes, signatures, next steps. The fraud manager at the end of the phone was kind, patient, but clinical. You'll want to pull your annual credit report. Change all your passwords. Ideally, do it from a secure device not usually used in the home. Monitor your email and social accounts for odd activity. Do you know who might have access to your mail, sir? I hesitated. In that moment, some animal part of me wanted to shield Hannah, to believe this was just a faceless, digital break-in. But as she'd always said, the simplest stories are the truest. My fiancée, we share the apartment. She helps with the bills sometimes. A pause. Just be careful, Mr. Mitchell. Keep a record of everything. Dates, calls, letters. Identity theft is often an inside job, even when we wish it wasn't. Outside the bank, I called my lawyer cousin, Mark, and tried to keep my voice steady. If you think someone close is stealing your ID, what do? Mark didn't miss a beat. Report everything. Document it. Don't confront them until you have absolute proof. Otherwise, things can spiral. Use secure devices. Back up your evidence. And if it gets ugly, file a police report first, not last. Back in our apartment, I searched for every digital record I could find. I ran device checks on my Gmail, logged out all sessions, changed every single password with 2-factor authentication from a burner phone I'd kept for travel. I downloaded copies of every transaction and set up Google alerts for my name. For 3 straight hours, I hardly blinked, just clicked and scrolled and archived. Every now and then, Hannah would pass by the door, asking if I wanted lunch or needed anything else printed. I replied quietly, even kindly, not trusting my voice to hide the fear. After she left for her yoga class, I checked our internet provider's portal, an option she never used. The IP history showed late-night logins from our home network, usually while I was, as she told me last week, dead asleep. I photographed every log page with timestamps. I even set up a small motion sensor camera pointing at the home office just in case. At night, my mind wandered through conversations from the last few weeks, the talk about paranoia, the sudden defensiveness. Looking back, I couldn't believe how easily I doubted myself. I started using an encrypted notes app, copying over every odd exchange. Every bank error, even snapshots of text messages she'd deleted on her end. In a moment of cold clarity, I realized my own apartment now felt more hostile than any bad neighborhood I'd ever walked through at 2 a.m. The next morning, a package arrived in my name, another bank's welcome kit. It was addressed to an email I didn't recall making, sent to a UPS pickup location a half hour from our place. Completely rattled, I called Mark once more and described the situation in detail. "This is serious, Eric," he said flatly, his tone all business now. "You should run, not walk, to the police with this information. Bring copies of everything. And do not, under any circumstances, tip her off before you're secure." I bought a fireproof safe on the way home. That night, with Hannah humming in the next room, I loaded it full. Every printout, every digital key, that beat-up travel phone. I slept on the couch, light on, heart hammering, the new edge between us sharper than ever before. The days bled into each other, a fog of fake smiles and carefully chosen words. I went through the motions, work, groceries, small talk with Hannah about nothing that mattered. The distance between us, once measured in inches across the couch, now felt like a frozen gulf. Every free moment was spent on evidence. I subscribed to all three major credit bureaus, flagged every account as at risk, and ordered physical copies of my credit reports. The pages told a gut-sickening story. Half a dozen new accounts, all opened in the last 3 months. My emergency contacts included her second email address, one she'd never mentioned to me, but had once used for an old Twitter account back when we started dating. The loan applications, the credit card requests, the repeated attempts to reset passwords on accounts I'd never touched. It all pointed in one direction. Through a barrage of forgotten passwords and second-factor PINs, I managed to map the digital trail. Nearly every login, recovery email, and verification text pinged just minutes apart, most from our own Wi-Fi IP. Once, I even caught a login attempt from the apartment while Hannah was supposedly out running errands. The absurdity nearly choked me. Outwardly, I played my part. I scheduled an appointment with the police and showed Mark the folders, digital and physical. He let out a long breath after scrolling through my archive. This isn't just credit fraud. This could ruin your reputation, Eric. If she's impersonating you online or talking to your friends, you need a formal statement. Now, I took a personal day from work and went to the police station. An officer behind scratched glass listened to my halting story, nodding, making notes. Do you have the evidence? I handed over a USB drive, the credit statements, logs from Gmail and the router, a printed sheet of all the questionable accounts. The officer barely blinked. She'd apparently seen this before, but said, "Since this is a domestic situation, we'll expedite the report. Do you have a safe place to stay?" The question hit harder than I expected. I think so. For now, don't tip her off. We'll get in touch if we need statements or a warrant. Back home, the air was razor thin. Hannah was waiting for me as I opened the door, her eyes flickering between panic and calculation. "You've barely said a word to me all week. What's going on, Eric?" I thought about exploding, about laying out every piece of proof right then and there. But Mark's words echoed. I needed to keep everything documented, needed the police with me for the final step. So I lied. Just tired. Work's been a nightmare. She pressed closer. "You trust me, right?" Her words, once warm, now cold and defensive. "You know you get anxious. You always overthink these things. I'm here for you, Eric. But I need you to be here for me too." I nodded like a passenger staring at brake lights. Then, as she retreated to the spare room, I watched, as I'd done 100 times before, her silhouette framed by the door. Something broke inside me. Not rage or fear or even grief, just bleak exhaustion. I realized I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be believed, to reclaim my own name. That night, jitters kept me up. I went back over every scrap of digital evidence, organizing it for the detective. I drafted a written timeline, emails, calls, all contacts she'd made on my behalf. Finally, I started messaging friends and family, low and slow, hinting that something strange was happening and asking for screenshots of anything I had sent them. Replies trickled in, screenshots of pleas for money, desperate confessions, even a GoFundMe link I'd never seen before begging for help to pay my gambling debts. My own mother's name as a top donor. The humiliation stung more than the financial loss. Not only the money, but the picture of me as some struggling addict, liar, victim, a story sewn together overnight, all in my name. I uploaded everything to a private cloud, set access for Mark and the police if anything happened. Then, with nothing else to lose, I spent the rest of the night in my car, shivering, watching the windows of the home I no longer recognized, hoping, for the first time in my life, that maybe this was all just a fever dream, and I'd wake up as Eric Mitchell again. The next few days moved with the burn of a bad fever, sleepless, detached, afraid of what I'd find each time I checked my phone. The police contacted me for a follow-up. They'd matched logins and transfers to Hannah's devices, confirmed my affidavit, and scheduled a time for me to come in and formally sign the complaint. That night, I slept in a hotel. My phone buzzed with texts from Hannah, then calls, first sounding apologetic, then angry, then suddenly desperate again. I silenced the phone and left it in the bathroom. The interview with the detective was clinical, oddly anticlimactic. We reviewed my paperwork, I confirmed the timeline, handed over screenshots, emails, even the GoFundMe page. "Don't contact her," the detective warned. "Let us handle the next steps." You did exactly what you needed to. Documented, reported, protected yourself. Most people never get that far. Back at the apartment, in the presence of two uniformed officers, I gathered the last of my essentials: passport, personal files, a box of irreplaceable photos. Hannah stood by the kitchen doorway, arms folded, face a strange mix of hurt and defiance. So, what? You're going to ruin my life over some stupid money? Everyone's scared, Eric. Everyone does what they have to. All I could say, as calmly as I could muster, was, "You did this." Not me. She left that afternoon, escorted by her own sense of wounded injustice. She sent a barrage of angry texts, voicemails, and even tried to log into my social from a coffee shop across town. I forwarded the alerts to the detective, then changed every password one last time. The fallout was as much social as legal. Word traveled among our friends. Some were horrified, some suspicious, some simply uncomfortable. A couple of people unfollowed me online without a word. My mother was more devastated by what friends had believed about me, by the donations she'd sent, than by the fraud itself. For days, even weeks, every ping of my phone sent a shot of panic and shame through my chest. To the world at large, it never ended up as a viral scandal. No mugshots, no public scenes. Just a formal report, a state charge of identity theft, and a slow, cold dismantling of everything I thought I called home. That winter, I found myself, more than once, sitting in my empty apartment at midnight, windows open to the noise of Clark Street, rereading the digital records I'd so methodically saved. I kept expecting to stumble on some new detail that would make the rest make sense. Maybe there's never a single moment you understand betrayal. Maybe there's only the long climb back from trusting the wrong person with your keys. Mark checked in often, reassuring but straightforward. You survived, legally, financially, and, mostly, socially. Now you learn from it. Therapy helped, if only to remind me that being right doesn't always feel like winning. In the months that followed, I slowly reclaimed my name from the algorithms, closed fake accounts, cleaned credit reports, rebuilt relationships, step by cautious step. Even then, I hesitated to share passwords or let anyone borrow my phone, and reflexively locked up everything: my mail, my calendar, the physical safe. But the healing came slowly, in fits and starts. One spring afternoon, my mother emailed to say she still didn't understand, but she trusted me. A friend sent a no questions, just pizza invitation. My bank manager waved with a genuine smile when I came in, quipping, "Glad to see the real Eric this time." I know now that getting your life back never really means what it sounds like. The old life, the one before the breach, is gone for good. What comes next isn't so much a victory as a gradual, uncertain rebuilding, brick by hard-won brick. And for the first time in ages, I found a version of home in my own name, one I intended to guard, fiercely, quietly, but without fear.